Every country has its pride, and there's no denying that the sight of Edinburgh gladdens the heart of every Scot, as well as those less privileged. To every man, too, his own special pride, and I make no secret that mine is transport. I run a transport depot in Scotland. She's a land of many contrasts, and the transport worker, by the nature of his work, is well placed to see all sides of it. The world knows that Scotland builds ships, but there are other products too. Be it coal, or timber, or cement, or sugar beet. And we transport quite a few loads of sugar beet, I can tell you. A good transport worker takes pride in getting it there, in good condition. Take any driver down at St. Boswell's Market. Sometimes there's as many as 4,000 to 5,000 head of sheep to handle after the sales. Fortunately, some of the drivers are ex-ploughmen. And here at Glenlivet is the trouble traffic. Freedom and whiskey gang together, said Robert Burns. But you can't be too free when you're handling 10 hundredweight butts of the precious fluid. A good sheepshank knot equal to the purchase of 4 men. It may go against the grain, but all you'll be getting this trip is a sniff. It's all for export. All timed just nicely to catch the boat. The policeman need be nothing but your friend. He knows Perth, for example, better than the driver does. So use him. He's there to help. Don't be surprised at a road transport man showing you a railway station. Mr. Smythe, the station master at Killin, could tell you that road and rail work very much side by side these days. Here's an example from my depot. I'd like to tell you about it. Bertlow and his pals were no railwaymen, though for 2 years they lived and slept on the line. Well, not exactly. Now, why did they find themselves in this particular situation? First, let me say they were all hand-picked. Bob Cuthbertson, the youngest, a fine loader and driver. Canny Geordie Joyner, 58 and 38 years in transport. Dave Oliphant, the man in charge. They come no finer than Dave, looked up to by all, including many a customer. And Bert, who at 18 stone fills his boots. Cook and driver all in one. But most of all, a team who for 2 years lived and worked together. As I said, they were not there to run the railway, but the railway was an important factor in their daily life. In fact, what the train brought up Glenogo was what they were there to take away, which was why Mr. Smythe, the station master, could often be seen talking to Dave Oliphant. That was in the nature of the whole operation. Every morning at 6, that was the deadline, in front of them a journey to be measured not so much in distance as by the nature of the going. Myself, I've been in transport like Dave Oliphant since the days of horses, but I'll tell you this was the toughest job I'd ever assigned a lorry to. Loading was always done the night before. They knew every detail of their job. They had faith in the vehicles they were to drive and in the service and maintenance that backed them. So once more, let's go. It's time to be away. Only 22 miles distance, but with 7.5 tons of cement aboard, the route placed tremendous strain on gears and brakes, and on men. Ask Bert, even with his 18 stone and 30 years experience, what it felt like once they turned onto the new road at Kennock. The road had been specially built, but without much thought for the vehicles that would be using it. Still, it was a road, and Scotland needs them. This one, when the job was done, would be taken over by the council, for it linked Glenlochy with Glenlyon. Or you might ask Dave. Only a man who's driven vehicles since the days of oil lamps could tell you what it means to lug 20,000 tons of cement up roads like this. This is country where nature, for all her savage beauty, can play a dirty trick or two. Aye, at certain seasons of the year, it was rain and yet more rain. And this country was well designed to catch it. That river can rise 6 feet in as many hours. No point in swearing at the weather, for rain was the very basis of the operation. Rain to be trapped and turned to power. Here was where they were heading for once more. Geora Dam, one of quite a few in Scotland's hydroelectric scheme. Everybody knows that dams are made of concrete, and concrete from cement. Poor chappies of my acquaintance are very, very sure of that engineering fact. Ask any of the poor what their shoulders will feel like tonight after doing this return journey twice a day. Twice a day for 2 years, and not a lorry off the road. They had plenty of time to ponder the natural beauties of their country, but up here only a fool would take his eyes off the road for long. The folk up here have a saying that you can live without your friends, but not without your neighbours. More or less the same prevails, it has to, with those who work here. These fellows we got to know well, using a fast-dying skill to help the hydroelectric fit into the landscape. I suppose it's natural for these inhabitants to feel they have the right of way. After all, the rules of the road are but an intrusion when you've never had a road. Norman Douglas, head shepherd of the Megarney estate, should be glad, though. Nigh on 70, he's been in the habit of walking 20 to 25 miles a day on his own 2 legs. For Norman, it's back each evening to a bowl of steaming toddy. The dogs look as if they need it too. And now they're almost there. But the last approach to Geora is no place to get excited. It's a bad stretch. Still, in spite of hazards, well before 9 o'clock in the morning, Dave, Geordie, Bob and Bert will have another 30 tons of cement up at Geora Dam. And another load to come. 2 trips a day. $20,000 tons were carried at 7.5 tons per lorry per trip. I myself usually arrive on a Wednesday in my little green van, and here I am. I used to look forward to it, a little chat with the boys to see how they were faring. They always seemed happy enough, though they only saw their families at weekends, and sometimes not even then. Bambi and her daughter, I should explain, were a walking tribute to the Blarney. The Irish navvies had trained them. They were fussy, too. Milk chocolate only. Bambi even knocked at the cookhouse door with her pretty head. I had plenty to think about on these visits. When you see an 8-wheeler, for example, taking tunnel rails down a gradient of 1 in 4, it brings home to you the hard realities of what a vehicle has to put up with under conditions like these. And that brings home to me what every driver knows and swears by, the need for expert and conscientious maintenance. A vehicle, like a man, responds to proper treatment, and without boasting, all our vehicles get what these are getting. Modern equipment in the maintenance depots ensures that nothing should go wrong. And nothing much did in these 2 years. Each weekend, half the vehicles concerned were greased, washed, and most important, the brakes adjusted. Transport brings enough problems when you're mobile. It's stupid to add to them with unnecessary breakdowns. Problems like this, for example. Another dam up at Lubriach, and also my pigeon. When these hydroelectric schemes are finished, That's not quite the end. There's plant to be removed. Competition is keen, but there's a lot of work to be had if you're on the spot at the right time. 2,000 tons of it right here. A hefty job which we discharge to the entire satisfaction of the customer. Right now, however, I had to arrange to move a couple of extra long crane jibs down into England. And the special trailer I wanted was somewhere else. That's the time to call on the organisation that lies behind you.
Must get a long trailer out of the traffic people at Dundee.
First, Dundee sends the message through to Glasgow, the centre of our Scottish teleprinter system. Every message in and out of Scotland goes through here. This time to London, the centre for England. It may surprise you, but it's quicker and cheaper than the telephone. It saves repeated verbal messages which might get garbled. Mine now goes on to Hull, to judge by the code sign. Very little time, my urgent request emerges in readable typescript in Scunthorpe, where the vehicle I wanted was lying. A 45-foot, 10-ton trailer, with or without unit. And at Scunthorpe, they can best decide how they can get the vehicle to the Scottish division by the date I wanted it. There aren't many of their kind, hence the need for a system that promptly puts it on call.
Good evening, Kay.
Good evening, Mr. Crockett. There's a teleprinter message from Scunthorpe.
Good, thank you. That's the one I've been waiting for.
Well, back in Perth after a day in the mountains. It's pleasant to think that your problems are in hand, including that trailer for Lubriach. Which reminds me, the driver will have to stay overnight with the boys at Killin. I'd better let Bert know he'll have one more to cater for. Not that I need have worried. It's the end of another hard day for the boys, or not quite. Each evening, there's still another job to do ready for the morning. A small item of loading 4 lorries with 30 tons of cement. Bert's on his mettle. He has the evening meal to cook. What's more, he does it on top of his share of the loading. Cement can wear your fingers to the bone, hence the rubber gloves, but still it rots your overalls and boots. The proof of any pudding is in the eating. And good driver though Bert may be, he wouldn't have lasted long as a cook if he hadn't dished out the goods. Which he did, so long as you agreed that custard was his masterpiece. Merton the porter does his evening round. But during the 2 years that the boys were there, life didn't end at that. In fact, it was just beginning. There's not much distraction at Killin of an evening, so the secret is to make a ceremony of what's left to you. Not exactly dressing for dinner, but it looks precious like it. A hard day's work under difficult conditions, and now good food and good companionship. Well, life could offer worse. The amount of steak those boys consumed is nobody's business. Good big chunks, roughly 3/4 of a pound per man. It's a wonder they weren't ashamed to look a cattle beastie in the face. And when the meal is over, what better than a little recreation? Especially if there's a willing victim who never seems to learn the strength of the opposition. Clear the way, we have a visitor. We may be living in the wilds, but we know how to treat a guest. This is one time when road and rail seem in deadly opposition. But believe me, in all ways that matter, road and rail together did a nice little job way up there at Killin.